The deep silence of space was broken when a single human vessel crossed into unknown territory. It was not a grand fleet, not an armada, not even a pair of ships traveling together. Only one vessel moved forward, slow and steady, as if it did not fear the thousands of eyes that now watched it. The vessel was old, but it carried the symbol of Earth, a blue and white mark painted across its side. That small sign now floated inside a region where no human had entered before. Dozens of alien sensors caught the signal. The vessel was already surrounded, though the humans inside did not know it yet. The ship's engines glowed weakly, like the last embers of a dying fire, yet still it pushed forward. To the alien observers, this was strange. Humans had fought hard in the past to protect their own borders, but never had they dared to send a lone vessel so far away. Why now? And why only one? On the command deck of the vessel, Captain Elias sat quietly. His face was calm, but his eyes did not leave the black void ahead. He knew they were being watched. He knew the moment his ship crossed the invisible line, every race in this region would notice. He could almost feel the pressure pressing down on his chest, as if the weight of countless alien empires stared straight at him. Still, he gave no command to turn back. The course was set, and there was no returning now. The crew whispered among themselves. Some were young, barely more than recruits. They had heard the stories, the Charon fleets that destroyed planets, the Arthene swarms that consumed entire colonies, the silent machines that drifted between stars and erased all signs of life they touched. Every species here had a legend, and most of those legends ended with war. And yet, here they were, only one small human ship, surrounded by powers that could crush them in a second. Why would Earth do this? Why risk one of their vessels in such a dangerous place? The question burned in the minds of the aliens as much as it did in the human crew. But Captain Elias said nothing. His silence was its own weapon, and his stillness was louder than words. Across the nearby system, the alien council gathered. Many voices spoke at once, each trying to understand what this human action meant. "They are provoking us," one voice hissed. "No. They are testing us," said another. "Perhaps it is a message," a third suggested. "Or perhaps it is a trap," warned a fourth. The debate grew louder, but the human vessel did not change its course. It moved as if it had all the time in the universe. That calm movement disturbed the council more than an army of warships ever could. Inside the vessel, the crew felt tension rise. They knew the alien council would respond soon. They had already crossed the line of no return. Still, Elias did not flinch. He stood before the wide glass window, watching stars drift like cold diamonds in the void. His crew looked at him for answers, but he gave none. Then, suddenly, the silence broke. A voice filled the comms, alien and sharp, layered with tones the human ear was never meant to hear. "Earth vessel," it declared. "You have entered restricted space. State your purpose." The crew froze. For a second, no one breathed. The ship's comms cracked with static. Everyone waited for Elias. The captain leaned forward, pressed a single button, and spoke. His voice was calm, steady, almost too calm. "We come alone," he said. "We seek only to speak." The crew exchanged nervous glances. Alone? Speak? Against a council of alien empires? They could already feel the weight of what was coming. The alien voice returned, colder this time. "Alone? A single vessel against us all? You risk much for words, human. Perhaps you do not understand where you are." Elias did not answer right away. He let silence stretch, let the aliens lean forward in their seats, let the audience of empires grow restless. Only then did he reply. "We understand exactly where we are." The words dropped into the silence like stones into deep water. Something stirred in the alien council. Anger, suspicion, and yet, curiosity. Why would humans come this far, alone, with no fleet behind them? Was it arrogance? Was it madness? Or was there something more? On the human vessel, the youngest crew member whispered under his breath, "Captain, What are we really doing here? Elias did not look at him. His eyes stayed locked on the dark, endless void ahead. And when he finally spoke, his answer was almost too quiet to hear. We are here to remind them that humanity is not finished. The crew stared at him, the meaning unclear, the weight heavy. Outside, hundreds of alien warships adjusted their positions, ready to strike. Inside, silence pressed against every heart. The first move had been made. The lone vessel was no longer hidden. The universe was watching. And none of them, not even Elias, could predict what would happen next. The alien fleet surrounded the human vessel like a ring of fire. Hundreds of ships, each larger and brighter than the lone Earthcraft, aimed their weapons. Their metal bodies glowed with power, their engines burned like suns, but still the human vessel did not move faster or slower. It stayed calm, as if the captain did not care that death was waiting in every direction. Inside the alien council chamber, voices shouted over one another. Some wanted to destroy the ship at once. Others demanded answers. A few suggested capturing the humans alive, for study, for secrets, for warning. But none of them could agree on why humanity had sent only one ship into their heartland. The council's leader, a tall creature with silver skin and eyes like molten glass, raised his hand. The voices fell silent. "We will hear them," he said. "If they lie, we will burn their world." The message was sent, and again the alien voice entered the human vessel. "Earth vessel, you have one chance. Speak your reason, or be destroyed." The crew sat frozen. Some were pale with fear, others whispered prayers under their breath. One young officer gripped the edge of his chair so hard his knuckles turned white. Yet Captain Elias stood calm, his hands behind his back, his eyes still on the endless black. He pressed the calm, his voice was steady. "We are not here to fight. We are not here to beg. We are here to deliver a truth." The council chamber shook with laughter. Their voices echoed across the hall. Truth? One ship, a week-old ship, dares to speak of truth. But Elias did not flinch. His silence pulled them back in, like gravity. He let their laughter fade before he continued. "You look at this vessel and think us weak. You believe humanity is small, unprepared, easy to erase. That is what you see. But truth is not always what you see." The aliens stared. Some shifted uncomfortably. Others narrowed their eyes. Still, none interrupted. Elias continued. "For 100 years, we have watched from our world. We have seen wars between your empires, fleets burn, worlds shattered. You destroy each other, yet none of you finish the fight. None of you win. You fear one another. But us, you do not fear. You think Earth is nothing. That is why we came alone." The words carried weight. Even the crew felt it, though they did not fully understand the captain's plan. His speech was not only for the aliens, it was for them too. The alien leader leaned forward. His molten eyes glowed brighter. "If you are not here for war, then why cross into our space? Why risk death for empty words?" Captain Elias turned from the window and looked at his crew. His face was calm, almost gentle. "Because words are not empty," he said. Then he spoke again into the calm, "because we know something you do not." The aliens stiffened. A murmur rippled across the council chamber. "What do humans know?" one voice asked. "Speak, or we tear your vessel apart." Elias closed his eyes for a second. When he opened them, his voice was quiet but strong. "We know the storm is coming." The room fell silent. Even his own crew looked at him in shock. "Storm? What storm?" The alien leader's voice turned sharp. "Explain." Elias stepped forward, closer to the calm. "We are not your enemy. Not today. Not here. But something moves in the dark beyond your borders. Something none of your fleets have faced. We have seen the signs. We have listened to signals you ignored. You may not believe us now, but soon, you will." Whispers broke across the chamber. The counselors exchanged sharp looks. Some argued in low voices. Others kept their eyes on the human captain, searching his face for weakness. One alien slammed his claw against the table. Lies. They try to sow fear among us. Destroy them now. But the leader raised his hand again. His molten eyes did not leave Elias. If you speak truth, then prove it. Show us this storm you claim is coming. Elias's lips curved slightly, though it was not a smile. More like a shadow of one. Proof will find you soon enough. But ask yourself this: would humanity risk everything, send one lone vessel, only to lie? The question cut through the chamber like a blade. Back on the human vessel, the youngest crew member whispered again, almost trembling. Captain, do you mean it? Is there really something coming? Elias's gaze remained firm. He did not answer the young man directly. Instead, he said only, "Stay ready." Outside, the alien fleets shifted again, unsure. Their weapons stayed locked on the human vessel, but hesitation grew. If Elias was lying, he was bold. If he was telling the truth, they might all be in danger. The council fell into silence. The leader studied the human captain for a long time. At last, he said, "We will not destroy you yet. But you will not leave. Until your truth is revealed, you remain here, under our eyes." The calm went dead. The crew sighed with relief, though the fear still clung to them. They had survived, for now. But their ship was trapped, surrounded by enemies. And outside the edge of known space, in the silent dark, something stirred. Captain Elias looked once more into the stars. His voice was low, but his crew heard him. "They think we came to speak. But the truth is greater. We came to warn. And soon, they will see what we already know." The human vessel floated in silence, caught in the cage of alien fleets. Hundreds of ships circled like predators around wounded prey. Yet they did not strike. The words of Captain Elias still hung in the air, pressing against every thought inside the council chamber. "The storm is coming." The phrase repeated in whispers across alien ships, across council halls, across hidden channels. Some laughed at it, some dismissed it, but others could not shake the unease. Humans were strange, yes, but rarely foolish. To risk so much on a lie seemed almost impossible. Inside the vessel, the crew tried to settle. They worked at their stations, but fear lived in every movement. The young officer who had spoken before now stared at his screen, watching alien ships mark their position again and again. Any wrong step, and they would be vapor in a second. "Captain," the officer said softly, "why don't we tell them everything? Why not show them what we've seen?" Elias stood with his hands behind his back. His eyes were sharp, fixed on the stars. "Because they are not ready," he said. "If I tell them now, they will not believe. Sometimes fear must grow before truth can be accepted." The officer lowered his head. He wanted to argue, but something in the captain's tone silenced him. Meanwhile, in the alien council chamber, tempers rose. "They are lying," hissed one elder with teeth like glass. "Humans seek to trick us, to buy time for their armies." "They have no armies," countered another. "We would have seen them move. No fleet has left Earth space in years." "Then why this? Why one ship into our core? Madness." "Not madness. A warning, perhaps." The leader sat silent, molten eyes glowing like fire trapped in stone. He was not so quick to laugh. Something in the human's voice lingered in his mind. Calm, steady, certain. He turned to his guards. "Bring their ship closer. I will look into their eyes myself." Moments later, the alien fleet shifted. Enormous ships moved, opening a path, guiding the human vessel like a prisoner marched to trial. The crew felt the movement and knew they were being taken deeper into danger. "Captain," one crew member whispered. "I know," Elias said. His voice remained calm, but his crew could see the weight in his face. The vessel entered the orbit of a great alien world. It burned with rings of fire, its surface scarred by ancient wars. Hanging above it was the council station, a vast structure larger than cities on Earth. Its arms stretched wide, glowing with energy, and thousands of ships docked along its edge. The human vessel looked like an insect drifting into a storm cloud. Docking clamps seized their hull. Lights flashed. Weapons stayed aimed. No one moved inside the human vessel. Then the call came. The captain was summoned. Elias walked through the narrow halls of his ship. His crew looked at him as if it might be the last time. He gave them no speech, no farewell. Only a nod, calm and strong, like a signal that they must hold. He left the ship and entered the council station. The hall was enormous, carved from black stone and lit with rivers of light. Thousands of alien eyes turned on him as he walked. Creatures from dozens of species whispered in low voices, studying the lone human who dared step into their heart. At the center, the council leader waited. His molten eyes fixed on Elias as the human stopped before him. "You speak of storms," the leader said, his voice deep and sharp. "You speak of truths we do not know. If you wish to live, you will explain." Elias met the alien's burning gaze without fear. "Your fleets believe they are strong. Your empires believe they rule the stars. But you have not seen what we have seen. In the void beyond your maps, signals travel. Patterns no machine should make. Shadows move where no life should be. We tracked them. We listened. And what we heard was not silence. It was hunger." The council stirred. Voices clashed. Some laughed, some shouted. But the leader did not laugh. His molten eyes narrowed. "Hunger." Elias nodded. "Something that does not build. Something that does not speak. Something that only consumes. It moves toward this galaxy even now." The words dropped like stones in deep water. One alien struck the table. "Lies. Trickery. He tries to frighten us." Another shouted, "Humans are desperate. They want protection. They invent enemies to make us listen." The noise grew louder, but Elias did not raise his voice. He stood firm, letting the storm of voices rage around him, until slowly they began to notice his silence. When it quieted, he spoke again. "You may destroy this vessel. You may kill me and my crew. It will not change what comes. It will not stop the storm. But if you listen, if you prepare, perhaps together we will survive." The hall froze. Even the leader leaned back, his glowing eyes unreadable. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the leader's voice rumbled through the chamber. "We will decide if you live. And we will decide if your warning has meaning." He turned to his guards. "Take him. Hold him. The council will judge." Armed aliens moved forward. Elias did not resist. He let them take him, his face calm, his steps steady. But inside his mind, he knew one thing. The council could argue. They could deny. They could threaten. Yet soon, the storm would reveal itself. And when it did, they would remember the human who warned them first. Cold walls surrounded Captain Elias. The chamber where they held him was small, carved from black stone, with a single light burning overhead. Chains of energy bound his wrists. They were not metal but glowing strands of force that hummed softly, as if alive. Guards stood at the door, tall and silent. Their eyes never moved, yet Elias felt their hatred like heat. To them, he was a spy, a liar, a man who dared insult their power. But Elias's face showed no fear. He sat still, waiting, as though time itself was his ally. Meanwhile, in the vast council chamber above, arguments raged. "Kill him," shouted one voice. "Erase his ship. Let Earth know what happens to those who trespass." "No," another argued. "If his words hold even a grain of truth, then destroying him would blind us to danger. He lies. Humans always lie. They fight among themselves, weak and chaotic. But he came alone. Would a weak race risk so much for a trick?" The leader listened in silence, molten eyes flickering like fire behind glass. He remembered the way Elias had spoken, calm, certain, not like a man begging for life. Finally, the leader raised his hand. The chamber fell silent. We will test his words. If the storm he speaks of is false, humanity will pay for its insult. If true, then perhaps we will listen. Far from their world, beyond the mapped stars, the storm Elias warned of began to move. It was not wind, not rain, not a force of nature as planets knew it. It was a swarm, endless shapes drifting through the dark. Their bodies were blacker than space, their edges sharp and shifting like shadows given teeth. They did not glow, they did not speak. They only devoured. Stars dimmed when they passed. Signals cut to static. Entire outposts vanished without a cry. Back on the council station, Elias lifted his head as the door opened. The guards stepped aside. A tall figure entered, the council leader himself. His molten eyes burned as he studied the human. You speak of storms, the leader said. But words are not enough. Show me truth. Elias's gaze did not waver. Truth is already on its way. Look beyond your borders. Listen to your own silence. It is closer than you think. The leader leaned forward, his voice like grinding stone. And if you are wrong? Elias's answer came without pause. Then kill me. Kill my crew. Burn Earth. If I am wrong, you lose nothing. But if I am right and you do not act, you lose everything. The leader's eyes narrowed. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he turned and left, his cloak of light trailing behind him. That night, or what passed for night on the station, strange signals touched the edge of alien sensors. At first, the operators thought it was static. Random noise. But the patterns repeated. Broken rhythms, irregular but alive. Some dismissed it. Others grew pale. Then came the silence. Entire watchtowers at the edge of the empire went dark. No signals returned. No distress calls, no explosions, only silence. The council was alerted. Panic whispered through the chambers. Some shouted that it was Elias's doing, a human trick. Others remembered his warning. The leader summoned his commanders. Send fleets. Find the cause. Across the stars, warships launched. Vast formations of fire and steel moved toward the edge where the silence spread. Their engines blazed, their weapons charged. They expected pirates, rebels, perhaps even human fleets. But when they reached the empty border, they found only darkness. One by one, their signals faded. First the scouts. Then the destroyers. Then the battleships. The council chambers listened as entire fleets went quiet, leaving behind nothing but static. Back in his cell, Elias opened his eyes. He had felt it, like a tremor in his bones. He looked at the guards. It has begun, he whispered. The guards sneered, but their eyes betrayed unease. Hours later, the council leader returned, his molten eyes burning hotter than before. He stared at Elias with something new, not anger, not scorn, but the edge of fear. What are they? The leader demanded. What comes for us? Elias's lips curved, not into a smile but into something heavier. Not what? Who? A hunger older than your empires. It does not care for borders, for power, for pride. It only consumes. It is the reason humanity came. Not to fight you. To warn you. The leader's firebright gaze stayed locked on him. For the first time, he said nothing. Outside, in the deep black between stars, the swarm spread wider, shadows moving like waves across a sea of darkness. Entire suns blinked out, swallowed by their advance. And still, they did not speak. They only moved closer. The alarms echoed through the alien station. Sirens pulsed with a low, heavy sound, a warning that carried across every hall. Soldiers rushed, council members shouted, and the vast chamber filled with voices that tasted of fear. For the first time in centuries, the mighty council did not know what waited beyond their borders. Reports came in fragments. Fleets lost. Colonies silent. Stations dark. No wreckage, no bodies, only absence. It was not war as they knew it. It was erasure. Inside his cell, Elias sat quietly. His chains still glowed, but the guards no longer stood tall. They looked restless, their hands twitching near their weapons, their eyes flicking toward the walls as if something might break through at any second. The silence between alarms was heavier now, full of weight no one wanted to name. The door opened. A commander entered, his armor dark and polished, his voice sharp. "Human. The council demands you speak again. Now." Elias rose without resistance. The chains loosened and dissolved, though their echo of light clung to his skin for a moment before fading. He followed the commander into the council chamber. The hall was louder than before. Voices fought, claws slammed tables, wings shivered, tails lashed the stone. The sight of Elias entering drew hundreds of eyes, many filled with hate, others with doubt, and a few with a fear they could not hide. The leader stood at the center, molten eyes blazing. "The fleets are gone," he said. "The stations are gone. What moves in the dark devours all. Speak, human. Tell us what you know." Elias stepped forward. His voice carried, steady and cold. "We called it the swarm. But names do not matter. They are not one race, not one mind. They are hunger given form. They travel in endless numbers. They consume energy, matter, even light. Where they pass, nothing remains." The council chamber filled with uneasy sounds. Some hissed in disbelief, some shivered, others sat silent, unable to deny the reports of their own scouts. "They are not new," Elias continued. "We first heard their signals a century ago. Weak at first, only whispers on the edge of space. But we listened. We learned. Humanity prepared in silence, while you fought your endless wars. Now they are here." The leader's voice rumbled. "Why come to us? Why not fight them yourself?" Elias's eyes burned with quiet fire. "Because alone, humanity cannot stand against them. Alone, neither can you. But together, perhaps there is a chance." The words cut through the chamber. For a moment, no one spoke. The idea of alliance was poison to some of them. Empires had fought for centuries. Trust was as rare as peace. And yet, the silence spreading through their borders spoke louder than pride. One elder rose, his skin glittering like broken glass. "You ask us to believe. But how do we know you did not bring them? How do we know this is not a human weapon?" Elias met his sharp gaze. "If it were ours, do you think we would risk one ship against all of you? Do you think we would stand here, unarmed, and warn instead of strike?" The elder fell silent. Others whispered. Suddenly, a young counselor rushed into the chamber, his face pale. "The swarm has reached the Arthene colonies. Millions are gone. No signals remain. No survivors." The hall erupted. Shouts filled the air, panic rising. The illusion of control cracked. Through the noise, Elias spoke again, his voice cutting sharp and clear. "You see now. This is only the beginning. Every empire, every world, every species will face the same. You may fight each other, or you may fight them. Choose." The leader's molten eyes locked on Elias. He saw the truth there, cold and merciless. Pride meant nothing against the void. At last, the leader raised his hand. The chamber fell silent. "Then we must prepare. If the human speaks true, this storm will not stop. We must decide if Earth stands with us, or falls with us." Elias bowed his head slightly, his calm never breaking. "Humanity did not come to beg. We came to remind you. Alone, none survive. Together, maybe." The leader said nothing more. His gaze turned distant, as if already seeing the fire that would sweep across the stars. Back on the human vessel, Elias's crew waited. The youngest officer pressed his forehead to the cold glass of the viewport, staring at the alien fleets outside. "What will happen to us?" he whispered. No one answered. But deep in the dark, beyond the farthest lights, the swarm moved closer. Suns flickered. Planets trembled. And soon, no border, no council, no empire would matter. Only survival. The first battle came without warning. Across the border systems, alien fleets gathered, their engines burning bright. Warships from empires that once swore to kill one another now stood side by side, their guns aimed at the void. They were not united by trust. They were united by fear. And in that fear, they waited. The human vessel was forced to remain behind the lines, close to the council station. Surrounded by warships, it looked weak, fragile, out of place. The crew watched from their narrow windows, their hearts heavy. "Will they believe us now?" the young officer whispered. His voice trembled, but his eyes were locked on the black horizon. "They don't need belief anymore," Elias said. His face was calm, his gaze cold. "They will have proof." The silence stretched. Then it broke. The swarm arrived. It did not come like a fleet. It did not march in order, or move in rows. It spilled from the dark like a tide, shapes shifting, edges twisting, numbers beyond counting. Blacker than space, sharper than steel, they came fast and without sound. Stars dimmed behind them, swallowed as if eaten by shadows. Alien warships opened fire. Beams of light, rivers of plasma, storms of missiles cut across the void. Explosions filled the dark, shaking even the human vessel miles behind. For a moment, it seemed the fleets might hold. The first wave of the swarm burned, shattered, torn apart by endless fire. But the tide did not stop. It closed again, filling the gaps, overwhelming the weapons with sheer numbers. Warships vanished beneath the mass. Entire squadrons blinked out of existence, their signals gone in seconds. On the human vessel, the crew gripped their stations. Alarms rang, lights flashed. They were not targets yet, but the battle shook them all the same. "They're losing," one officer whispered. "There are too many." Elias did not answer. His eyes stayed fixed on the chaos. He had seen this before, long ago, in fragments of old signals, in broken reports from lost colonies. This was no battle. This was consumption. The alien council chamber filled with shouts. "More fleets. Send reinforcements. Hold the line." But even as they ordered, they knew. Reinforcements would only feed the dark. Back on the battlefield, a flagship burned. It was a giant vessel, proud and armored, carrying the banner of one of the oldest empires. Its guns blazed until the very end, but the swarm closed around it, tearing through shields, through hull, through steel. It collapsed in silence, swallowed whole. The crews watching from the station gasped. Some cried out. Others fell silent, their pride shattered. Elias turned from the viewport. His voice cut sharp against the fear. "Now you see. Fire alone will not save you." The young officer stared at him. "Then what will?" Elias's answer was quiet. "Something more than fear. Something you have all forgotten." The crew exchanged looks but said nothing. They knew better than to press him when his eyes burned like that. The battle raged for hours. Fleets broke, retreated, regrouped, and broke again. Every victory cost more lives than it saved. The swarm did not care. It did not weaken. It only spread. At last, the order came, retreat. The surviving fleets pulled back toward the station, engines screaming, shields cracked, weapons drained. Behind them, the swarm did not chase. It simply lingered, feeding on what remained, its black shapes circling like sharks in bloodied water. On the station, panic rose. Council members shouted, accused, demanded. Some wanted to flee, others to fight, others to blame the humans. The chamber shook with anger and fear. Elias was brought before them again. His steps were calm, steady, as though the destruction outside had been expected. The leader's molten eyes glared at him. "You warned us. And yet you offer no solution. What would you have us do, human? Surrender? Hide? Beg?" Elias raised his head. His voice carried, steady and sharp. I would have you remember what you are capable of. You call yourselves rulers of the stars, yet you fight like frightened children. Alone, you fall. Together, you may rise. But to rise, you must trust. The words struck the chamber like thunder. Trust was the one thing none of them wanted to hear. Trust was weakness. Trust was danger. And yet, outside, the swarm fed on their dead. The leader's eyes narrowed. He said nothing, but his silence spoke louder than anger. He was thinking, measuring, calculating. Elias stepped closer, his gaze firm. Decide quickly. The swarm will not wait. And neither will humanity. The hall froze at those words. None could tell if it was a threat or a promise. Outside, beyond the broken fleets, the swarm shifted again. Not retreating, not rushing forward, only watching. As if it knew this was only the beginning. The council chamber was silent. Too silent. The echoes of the battle still hung in the air. Fleets burned, colonies erased, signals gone forever. Every counselor knew the truth now, though most would never admit it aloud. Pride had cracked. Fear ruled. Captain Elias stood before them, chains gone, his crew still trapped aboard the vessel. His calm face cut against the chaos around him. The leader's molten eyes burned bright. You speak of unity, he said, his voice low, heavy. But we are not one people. We are enemies. We cannot trust. Elias's answer came sharp. Then you are already dead. The words stabbed the chamber. Whispers broke out. Some hissed in anger, others shivered. The truth was too close to deny. One counselor slammed his clawed hand against the stone. Human. If unity is the only way, then show us why we should trust you. Humanity hides in the shadows. Humanity has no fleets like ours, no armies, no empires. What do you bring? Elias's gaze turned cold. You think we are weak because we are small. Because our fleets are few. But you forget, we survive. Every empire here has fought wars for centuries. You have lost more lives in pride than the swarm will take in hunger. Yet humanity endures. We learned to fight not because we were strong, but because we had no choice. He stepped forward, his voice rising. You asked what we bring. We bring the will to survive when survival seems impossible. We bring the fire that refuses to die. The chamber shook with noise. Some shouted agreement, others roared in denial. The leader raised his hand. Silence fell again. His molten eyes studied Elias long, as though searching for weakness. Finally, he said, then prove it. If humanity holds such fire, show it. Not in words. In battle. Elias nodded once. So be it. That night, the human vessel was released from its cage. It floated among the broken fleets, a small shadow surrounded by giants. Elias returned to his crew, his steps steady, his face unreadable. The young officer rushed to him. Captain, they'll throw us against the swarm. We can't stand against that. Elias looked at him, calm as ever. We don't need to stand. We need to strike. The officer frowned. Strike? With what? We have nothing compared to them. Elias turned his gaze to the stars. We have enough. Hours later, the swarm moved again. It came in silence, a tide of black shapes sweeping toward the survivors. Alien fleets scrambled into formation, weapons lit, shields raised. The council leader's command ship floated at the center, burning with energy. And far ahead, alone, the human vessel moved forward. Captain! The crew whispered, hands trembling at their stations. They'll tear us apart. Elias's voice was calm, steady, like stone against fire. Then let them try. The swarm closed in. Countless shadows circled, their bodies shifting, edges sharp. They moved fast, too fast. The first wave struck. The human vessel shook, shields flaring, metal groaning. Alarms screamed, sparks rained from the ceiling. The crew clung to their stations, fear choking them. "Hold steady," Elias said. His eyes never left the black void ahead. "Not yet." The swarm pressed closer, surrounding them, drowning them in numbers. The crew's panic grew. Weapons fired, but the darkness swallowed them. "Captain, we're finished," the young officer cried. Elias's hand hovered over a control, his face set like iron. "No. Now." He pressed it. The ship trembled, not with weakness but with hidden power. Panels shifted, light blazed across its hull. The old vessel, plain and fragile, split open to reveal weapons hidden deep within its frame. Cannons unfolded, energy cores ignited, shields flared brighter than suns. What had looked like a relic now burned like a blade drawn from its sheath. The crew gasped. Even they had not known. The swarm surged, but this time the vessel answered. Beams of light cut through the dark, piercing shapes that had never been pierced before. Explosions tore across the tide. The swarm shrieked without sound, twisting, breaking, falling back. From the council station, alien eyes widened. Whispers filled the halls. The weak human ship had become a weapon of fire, its strikes sharper than their own fleets. Elias stood tall, his voice steady as the void. "You asked what humanity brings. Now you see. We are small. We are few. But when the storm comes, we burn." The swarm reeled, retreating for the first time. The fleets, shocked but inspired, surged forward behind the human vessel. For a brief moment, shadows broke against fire, and hope lit the dark. Yet Elias's face stayed cold. He knew this was not victory. It was only survival. The storm was not defeated, it had only tested them. As the swarm pulled back into the void, silence fell across the stars. The council fleets cheered weakly, but fear still clung to them. On his vessel, Elias looked into the black horizon, his eyes heavy. "They will return," he whispered. This was only the beginning. And deep in the void, unseen by all, the swarm shifted again, larger, darker, hungrier. The storm was not finished. It had only begun.